Welcome to the show with personal brand authority, Lita Citroen. Lita is an award-winning executive coach, speaker, and author working with clients in over 30 countries. She helps professionals, entrepreneurs, and business leaders manage the way they're perceived by the people who matter most. From leadership development, influence building, to strategic communications and social media positioning, Lita's work is thoughtful, motivating, and practical. Get ready for a great program. Here's Lita.
Well, hello, and welcome to another Live with Lita program. Ooh, are you in for a treat today? We are going to have such an important conversation. Not only is it practical for what we're doing, but I think you're going to find it pretty inspiring as well. I'm so excited you're here with us. And if you've been on any of my Live with Lita programs before, either streaming on Instagram or on LinkedIn, you know, one of my favorite questions to ask at the beginning is, please drop us a note in the chat and tell us where you're dialing in from. What part of the world, what part of the country, what city are you in, so that we may give you a shout out and welcome you to today's program. As I got ready for today's conversation, I was thinking about decisions, how we make decisions. And I'd like to ask you to think about when the last time you made an important decision, when you were doing that, what was some of your thought process, right? Maybe you were buying a car, buying a house, asking someone to marry you, changing jobs or careers, going for that promotion after all that time, maybe even starting your own company. What is your thought process, and what is the system that you use to make sure you're asking the right questions, you're staying true to yourself, and you're making a decision that's right for you? You know, we have this operating system that we might intuitively use, which means we decide with our head, our heart, and our gut. And sometimes all three of those are in alignment, and sometimes they're not. And I remember back to a client I worked with years ago. She was a business owner in Boston, and she reached out to me with an interesting question. She said, I've started my company. Everything's ready to go. I hired a branding team. I hired a web team. They've got everything ready. I just can't push go. I can't push start on the website and the communication plan and the social media. She said, I'm stuck and I don't know why. It was an interesting challenge because a lot of the work that I do would have been getting her to that place, but she'd already done that part. So her question was interesting. And we sort of unpacked where the resistance was. What was it about hitting go that scared her? Was it not feeling comfortable with the direction of the business? Did she not feel that the messaging and the voice of the website really spoke to who she was? And she said, I don't feel like it reflects my purpose. And there we were. So unpacking all of that was how we were really able to understand what the resistance was, make some fine tune, edits, and bring all of the voice of her social media and her communication in line with who she is. And let's face it, a lot of us make decisions because other people tell us it's good for us, or because it's defining success, as we'd always been raised to believe that's what we were supposed to do. But when we think about our own lives and the work that we're here to do, it's really important that we're doing things that are right for the reason we are here. And that's really listening to our heart. So when I think about the work that I'm focused on now with the new book coming out, which hopefully you all have pre-ordered because it's such a good book, it's about building influence because of who you are, but also why you're here. And that is really important. Not just who you are, but what is the purpose you're here to serve? And that's what we're going to talk about today. So without any further ado, and you're still going to drop into the chat where you're dialing in from, because you know that's my favorite part. So please let us know where you're calling in from. I want to introduce our special guest today. This man's bio does not even come close to representing who he is, but I'm going to read it anyway. Roland Vandermeer is executive chairman of Upterra, a revolutionary ag tech company. He has over 20 years experience investing in early stage technology companies with 4 multi-billion dollar exits. He has spent the past 15 years helping to build 3 sustainable and regenerative real asset investment firms in agriculture, water, waste, and energy. He's an investor, an entrepreneur, and has experience managing over multiple billion in capital in both venture capital and real asset financing. He's now directing assets, resources, and leadership with the purpose to create scalable solutions that that create the systems for the planet and the people to thrive together. So with that way underestimated bio, welcome to today's program, Roland. We're really happy to have you.
Thank you, Lena. Thank you so much. And the bio may be overstated versus understated sometimes when I listen to it in retrospect. But a pleasure to be here and be with you.
Well, wonderful. One of the things I think would be really helpful for you to share at the outset is, we've all made choices. We all navigate sort of those inflection points in our life and our career. You've got a unique story of doing that in a pretty dramatic way. And I would love if you would share the story of how you got here from where you started.
Wow, it's a long story. You said in your preamble there that, you connect your heart, your gut, and your mind together and make decisions. Well, that's really wonderful. And I find women can do that much better than men. Us men seem to stay up here more making our decisions, and we construct the paradigm in our minds that we think we see, and we operate that way versus working in your heart and your gut into the decision process. So, which is what I'm doing now more, and trying to help others do as well, because that is the paradigm you seek. And that when all that comes together, then you make really good decisions, I believe. And even if it doesn't work out, it was the right decision because it's the experience you gained, right? No matter what. So again, back to your question, how did it all begin? Or it's a crazy journey, because in some ways I thought I was fearless about it. And if you really look at your decision-making process, sometimes it's fear-based, but you really have to uncover it. And it's fear about not having enough money. I really want to do this job, but they don't pay me enough. I'm going to go to this one over here because it's, going to pay me a lot more, and I want to live there, even though I don't like the job. I mean, I've seen many, many kids go through that right now, but we all made those decisions. Right. And the truth is, when you really go to your heart and you really feel into something, those are the best decisions for you, because that motivates you. That's like, I will work harder when my heart's involved. And it's what Joseph Campbell says, follow your bliss. It's what all the amazing coaches are saying now, follow your heart. It is so important. So for me, I had several decisions to make, but first I always knew I was going to be an engineer initially, because I loved computers and computer science, electrical engineering, and I decided to do that. And I happened to go to University of Pennsylvania. There was a Wharton school there. I said, oh, let's do that too. Why not throw that in the mix and come out with both degrees? It was really wonderful, but that was not on purpose. That was just an accident almost. And then engineering, and then somehow I was going into startups. First I started at a big corporation, got some training, thought that was a base level. And then I was looking at startups, or mid-tier startup kind of thing, early days in venture. This is the 80s we're talking about, early 80s, mid 80s. And I happened to stumble on some people. And I kid you not, this is again where you follow your heart. I was teaching windsurfing at Club Med for a summer, really great. Met somebody who met somebody. And then I got introduced into the venture world in 84, 85. And that was incredible. Before, it was really, people didn't know what venture capital was. It was like, what are you talking about? No one even understood the word. And so you'd say something like, finance, and they'd be fine. But it was an unknown commodity at that point. And there were probably 30, 40 firms in the country, maybe. And the biggest firm was probably $300 million. That's it. So it was early days, and I got lucky, because I taught windsurfing. Okay. So again, following your heart, doing something you love to do kind of can lead you to certain things. And I can tell you story after story. Everybody thinks you have to go to the best schools, the best this, the best that. I was just telling one of my daughters who are in their mid-20s going through their career stuff. The guys that in our neighborhood we grew up, they went to no-name universities, and they were ski bums, and they did this and they did that, and then they wound up in these amazing things because they were passionate about what they did. So again, it's about passion. That's the whole thing. Real quick, my background: venture capital. actually did a lot of startups. I was not afraid to jump in and help out and run them. And that's why I got very fortunate to have that experience, to jump in and jump out and jump in and jump out. And some of those worked really well, as you know. But and then it all blew up around 2001, the dot-com bust. Our communications sector was decimated, and it changed. And I thought it would always come back. It didn't come back the way I thought it would. It became about digital media, which is something I had no background in. And I said, because I didn't know better, I said, it's getting people to buy stuff they don't need. So I kind of shunned it a little bit. I'm not faulting those ventures. I'm just saying I didn't understand it well. And then I thought I better do something else, because our time had come, and I started looking at the environmental issues. And that was a drawing for me, because I thought we could make a difference in the world out there. And I saw that what's going on destructively. So I helped several firms get started there, a couple firms, and then started our own firm. And those firms today combine probably several billion of assets under management and doing okay. It's been a tough go, because they were trying to convince people back in end of 2010 or so, the world's changing and we have to fix it. And people still don't recognize how much we need to do, but they're getting there. And then that went along. And then I discovered resonance science, resonance physics, which is about the neatest technology that'll break all these paradigms that we're seeing today. In almost every sector, it will have an impact. And it's quantum world. It's also in the quantum world. So you're going to see a lot of technologies in health and science, in computing, in agriculture, which I'm involved with right now, in water, and in waste management, energy generation. All these things are going to come out of that realm. And we're going to see these, and I'm seeing it now. More and more people are getting more mainstream about it, but it's taken some time, but it's getting there. And that's what I'm focused on right now.
And that journey is absolutely incredible. One of the things you sometimes talk about is this idea of deconstructing ego, right? So you had to pivot at different points, because you could have held on to the communication sector, but it was going away from you. And I think about that book, which is so simple, but it's one of my favorite, Who Moved My Cheese? Right. And the idea behind the book is, you have those people who just go, no, this is what I know how to do. And this is what I'm good at. And this is what I'll make money at. And I stick with it. But then there's the agility that you need to have to say, okay, things look different now. What does this mean? And ego plays a part of that. Can you talk a little bit about that whole concept of deconstructing ego and being of service to others?
Wow. Okay. That's really the fundamentals. And thank you for bringing that out. And it's what I'm doing every day. And what I learned when I go back to my venture days, and even the last 10 years or so, I didn't realize how constructed my paradigm was, my ego, my arrogance of everything. And people even drop hints to me, and I'm like, yeah, but I'm right. What does it matter? It just felt like that. And so you can't see yourself. And that's the definition of narcissism, right? You cannot see yourself. And there's a good reason you can't see yourself, because you've constructed a paradigm that works, and it works well. What are you talking about? I'm making money. I'm doing good stuff. Even if I'm pissing off some people, it doesn't matter. You're doing well. So it's very hard to be self-reflective. It takes like a hit in the head and a bolt of lightning, or painful things like near-death experiences, or very sickness or something, to make you really come back and reflect on yourself and saying, what is going on here? What did I really do? So if you think of it as geometry of building, structures, you build a structure of your identity. That is your identity. And it can prove itself all day long, because we're brilliant. Our minds are amazing at constructing this identity, and it'll hold water, and you'll prove it and prove it and prove it, no matter how people come at it. So to let it go, to empty your cup, so to speak, because once it's full, you're full. And I was full, full of whatever, it's amazing. And then slowly I had, some very painful things I went through, and on a personal level and a professional level. And even that I was fighting back. There must be a better way. And when you finally let go of all that, and that's a journey, it's a hero's journey, if you will, you begin to see and drop into your heart and say, okay, it's not about being right at all. It never is. Everybody has their own journey here. And to allow everybody to have their own journey and witness it. And if you align, there's a good decision to be made. If you don't align, don't make them together, just like hire an employee. If They want to do the job that you want to hire. I mean, they want to do it, not you hire them to do your job, but their vision is the job that you have. It's perfect. That's when you have a chance at really making it work. All the way around doesn't work. So same with our own character. When we deconstruct ourselves, we begin to go to our heart. Then what does my heart really want to do? And that's why these kids today in their 20s, a lot of them are deciding amazing things like you wouldn't believe it. And they can get a cool job at a startup and then quit like in a year and say, I'm doing something else because my heart is aligned. And it sounds flaky, but they're really searching for what they want to do instead of stick to it, work hard and knock yourself out because that's the way I did it. It doesn't work anymore.
Mm-hmm. Well, and I love what you're talking about, because one of the things I focus on in the book, and I know you've read it, The New Rules of Influence, is this idea of being of service. That if you're looking to build influence, to have more, to get more, to be more, that's the wrong motivation. One of the rules, actually number 4, is that you have to be of service to others to have influence. Your influence has to be to drive change, to make a difference, because it benefits more than just yourself. And that's kind of what you're talking about is seeing a need, feeling your purpose, aligning all of that. The money comes, right? It's not hard to make money. I tell people that all the time. Like, the money isn't the hard part. Finding your purpose, finding your path, that's hard. That's hard for most people.
Yeah, and when you're having a hard time, making ends meet, it's hard to have that conversation. Okay, when you've
Absolutely.
made enough to have the time to look at things, it's a lot easier to do that.
Sure.
But the service thing is something you would have told me that 10 years ago. I said, what are you talking about? Really. But think about it. If I had food, if I had my family, if I was comfortable, I knew my healthcare was taken care of, and I knew I lived in a decent place, and I knew that would be there forever. Okay, just forever. What else is there? There's to take care of others. There's to love others, to help them, to do that. Because why do I need to aggrandize myself anymore? Most of the things we make the decision out of fear, out of scarcity I won't have enough tomorrow. And that's a fear. Now, when you have faith, okay, belief in that it will be there, that the universe will provide for me, you can let go of those constraints and then start to be of service to others. Your venture, your new thing should be of service to others. Why? Because they'll want it, and they'll love it. And then eventually you'll get paid for it. That's how it works. And we've been taught the opposite. We got to figure out a product that they're going to buy. No, it's actually quite the other way. The ones that are successful, sometimes there's a whole new paradigm shift and people didn't know they needed it, but they did. Those are genius things. But again, they come from the universe. People don't create anything in this little mind here. There's nothing going on up here except it's a tuner for everything that's out there, right? And your heart too. So I think you're right. If you can find the place where your heart aligns with giving something, granting something, doing something, that is probably the best place to play. And I can trace back every venture. It almost works that way, but we don't see it that way.
Well, and you use the word fear, right? So when fear is driving us, then we become possessive. We become, defensive. It's a very different mindset than, this idea of letting your ego go. I mean, I serve my clients. I serve my audiences. My goal when I step on stage is not that, of course, I want to look good. I want to sound good, but it's not about me. It's about them. And so being tuned into that and making sure, are they nodding at the right points? Are they getting it? Am I giving them what they need, my audiences, to be able to thrive and go out in the world and do better things? That's my focus. And if I focus on that, then everything else just kind of comes along with it. Yes, I have to have been given the opportunity, but it changes it. Because I think you can tell when people are motivated for their own self-serving needs.
Well, I'll bring up a little story because it makes it more poignant, and it's a painful one for me to recount because it's something that I wish I never happened, but it did. We had a decision to make in our firm, in a venture firm. We're very small. There's 7 partners and how many other people there? Another 10 or 20. And we were an established firm that was going really well. Well, we made a decision, and I would say I made a decision that one of my principal, my mentor, the man who gave me the gift of being in this business and set me free and just encouraged me to do what I could do, wasn't doing as well in this cycle. And the firm was getting all angst about it. And I said, we got to do something. And I decided to make a decision based on money instead of love and relationship. And it was the breaking that basically broke the whole paradigm of the firm, because the moment you do that, and I can trace it takes a while to trace it back, but you see it, like, if it doesn't come from the heart, what are you doing? And he said something so profound, and not even anger. And this man's definitely not that emotional, but he's wonderful, caring. Like, he would make sure you're okay. He said, "You're going to the dark side." And I'm like,
wow.
what? Like, I was just like, give me a break. Star Wars analogy, all that stuff. I could do everything to fight that, but he was so right, and that line sticks in me so profoundly. Like, God, that was a moment in time. I had a decision to make, and I went for the money. Okay. And I decided with the money instead of the love, that we could create something, because there you would find the camaraderie and the togetherness. Money breaks people apart. And again, multiple times after that, I made the same decision, citing for, out of fear, I have to look good. I have to make money. I have to show we can do this, and make decisions based on money instead of what the heart says. And we destroyed a firm based on that. And I take full accountability for that. It's awful. It doesn't help. So, and then I felt that, okay, I got that, but I did it out of here. And again, certain things happened karmically to make up for what just happened there. It was amazing how you can play the story out. You look at karma, it does work. Bad and good. And when you go to your heart and you serve and you find purpose in what you're doing, it feels good. What are we here for? We're going to feel good doing what we're doing. How many more cars that I need? How many more houses or vacations or whatever? They don't do anything. They just satisfy that little urge right there. But being in a state of friendship and love and caring for people and having a team, there's nothing better. That's what we're here for. So it's really been a journey to go back to that state. And now the teams I work with, Upterra included, everybody there works from their heart. They're there because they want to be. And if it's not working for them, we say, okay, let's do something different. They would want to leave or try a different role, whatever. It's okay, because it's from the heart. And we know we're going to be successful, really successful. But it's an amazing team to watch how it works differently. And the heart is not linear, okay? The heart is not linear. It's the most... We think this world is linear and it works this way. That's what we're taught. It's not. This is a quantum world. Random things happen. They're not. We can create on the fly. Ideas come in. It changes. And once we get out of that linear paradigm, you can make most impossible things happen.
Wow. I can only imagine that some people are starting to think about questions. Be sure to drop those questions into the chat. We will have time to answer those when Roland and I are done talking. And I think about, what you're explaining at a very high level. It still relates to someone who may just be an individual contributor in a company who says, if I'm only about securing my own promotion or my next kudos from my manager, then I'm thinking about my role in the organization wrong, right? How can I support those people around me? How can I bring them in and highlight them? It's not a zero-sum game, right? Highlighting someone else and bringing someone else to the table doesn't mean it's less for you. It just means you're opening your heart up to more possibilities. And in turn, you mentioned karma. I do think it rewards you in that way. Would you agree?
Yeah, I mean, everybody is an entrepreneur in their own right. Okay, so everybody's going through the same process, and no matter what level you take. Some put more zeros on the end, some put more people on the end, whatever. But you're always in a role of doing the same thing, and the journey is the same for everybody. And there's not, like, just because you're at different levels of whatever metric you want to use, does not make it any less than. That's the other thing we learn. Every human. In fact, I have a very good friend who's writing this book called Under the Bridge, and she jogs and runs, down the streets in LA and goes under these overpass where the homeless are, and she'll stop and engage them. And people would be horrified with the people. She's like, no, there's an amazing human in there too. Okay, so people are just brilliant wherever they are, and they're doing what they feel they have to do right now. So no matter where you are, if it doesn't feel good, you got to ask yourself why. Is it you who doesn't feel good, or is it something in the role, somebody there that's not? And how is that? You're there for a lesson. So what is the lesson? Is it a self lesson that learning how to love that person if they're having a bad day or a bad year or whatever? Or is it something that you need to have better boundaries because you've given away your power so much? You say, hey, enough is enough. This far, no further, right? Because it is about that. And it's the lesson you're learning. And when you can understand that, then you can become self-referencing in a way. And then you can find your path out of that because you've broken the karmic cycle of that. It's over.
I love that. Absolutely love that. And another thing you and I talked about when we were getting ready for this is the idea of being in flow. And I want you to talk about that because you talk about leading with your heart and authenticity. And when you're in flow, kind of like what we're saying here, that it almost feels easy. And we might intellectualize and start going, how come it feels easy? It's supposed to be hard. I was taught it was supposed to be hard. But what is the idea of being in flow, and how does it show up for you, and how could it show up for other people?
Okay, I'm going to jump into that, but you just said something. The words we choose to communicate with matter so much. Spells. We spell words. When we communicate words, we're actually laying out a framework. Okay, so be careful the words we use. So, I am sick. You've just made yourself sick.
Right.
I don't feel well. I'd like to change that. It's not what I am. It's I don't feel.
Right.
And words matter. Okay, so I'm going to pick word choice is very important, very important. Flow is this idea that we all have experience. I don't care who you are, you definitely experience flow. Whether it's Michael Jordan when he goes through these amazing moves from the baseline all the way up, flying through the air, moving the ball, puts it in the basket. There's no mechanical way he could have done that, but he does it because he's in a state of divine flow and his body is automatically doing what it needs to do. Any athlete who's run or who's played sports, there's this moment of flow that you feel where it's euphoric and there's nothing you can do wrong. You can be giving a talk and you come off the stage, you have no idea what you just said, but you were in flow and you delivered it, right? Simple, taking a walk in nature and all of a sudden letting go of everything. And you're all of a sudden in this great state of grace, which is the easy way. That's why nature is a great place to tune into this flow state. I had it during tests, like SAT tests or whatever. I would be in a state of, that's why I love those things. That's why I scored really well, because it was like, whoa, I just disappeared. And most people don't, but that's just an anomaly. So I've experienced with athletics, I've experienced meditation, of course, is where you can get quiet. Some people don't like to meditate. Then sing, okay? Be in a state of singing, then pray, then even dancing is a wonderful way to be in a state of flow. Okay, all these things. Now, taking that feeling of heart and flow into your work life, okay? Driving your car instead of, oh my God, like I drive, like this, just be like, I am the sun. Does the sun ever worry? The sun just shines. It is in a state of flow all the time. Whether it's cloudy, the sun is shining. That's who we are. We have little suns inside of us, if you will. Something's making this body go all the time. So send that signal out and be in that state. When you walk into a conference room for a meeting, feel your heart, be in a state, and then watch that flow happen. Watch people smile as you smile. If they're not smiling, just smile. They're having a tough day, not you. Nothing to do with you. Right. And then you can achieve that moment by moment. And when you find yourself out of flow, take a breath, do it again. And then you're in that state again. And it's so beautiful. I have an alarm on my little cell phone here every hour. And if I'm out of flow, it tells me to take a breath out, and then I'm back in. And that's a really important techniques for us to get through the day. And as we build that, we build momentum. And then our hearts feel better and we feel better. And people are smiling at me all over the more I do this. Like, this is amazing. I'm like, what world is getting better? It's because you're getting better. You're feeling the love and you're giving the love. And then people reflect it back. Everybody's a reflector. And you can find yourself, if someone's being grouchy to you, it's probably a reflection of you somewhere. Okay. So this is all about flow states and working and breathing and living our way through this life in a very different way. And I think I feel it everywhere, meditation groups, yoga groups, mindfulness groups. Everybody's trying to biohack this body. It's pretty easy. This is a complex technology, but flow is the best way to kind of go at it first.
How does flow work when you're making decisions? Because that's kind of how we started off, right? So you've got maybe somebody watching is trying to decide, do I confront my boss about something I don't think is right? Or I want to raise my hand for a promotion, or I want to change my job. How does that flow state either improve our decision-making process or at least allow us to think more clearly.
Yeah, I think in your book you mentioned some great examples of that too. So it's there's many ways to do it, Lita. But the first thing is, as I said, the mind will take hold of it, and it's so clever. It'll figure out paths and construct a 3D thing that is based on some emotion that it needed to survive, like fear. Okay, so we have to make sure we're not in our mind. So the first thing is to breathe a few breaths. Just 3 deep breaths, imagining, and then you're calm enough to maybe think about it. But if you're not calm, note that and realize that's not a good time. If you're engaged and anxious, don't make a decision at that point. Even taking a nap, and waking up and feeling more relaxed, and then writing down things. So people like to think, it was a good exercise, actually. Write down, people say, write down all the things I have to do, or things that are going bad. Turn it around. All the things you're grateful for, all the things that are going well, all the things. And all of a sudden you feel like, my life is good, And from that place, wherever it takes to take a walk in nature, from that place, think about, what does my heart want to do? Don't think of limitations. What would you really do? If there are no constraints, leave the constraints on the table. Okay. Well, I don't make enough money. I'm poor. I don't have a relationship. I don't want to move this. Whatever, don't think about that. Think about all the things that you would love. And then in this new role, it would be really, and look at it and feel that. And if that feels good, that's really good. Then think about things that might need to be adjusted to make that happen. So take it in a positive role. The plus minus thing can work, but it's so binary, and this is not a binary world. It's a very quantum world. So it's a field effect. And therefore, starting with the positive domain. And if it doesn't add up, if I got all those things, it still doesn't feel good. Game over. Move on. Let it go. And don't revisit it, because you made a decision, and it's okay. Whatever you do, it is perfect for you. That's the hardest lesson we learn. Everything we do has actually been designed, and I mean this, designed by you. The higher part of you, the higher aspects of you already knows what you're here to do. So if you make a decision, you say, why did I make that decision? I mean, is there really any decision you can ever regret? You've learned a lesson. Maybe in the first month, 2 months, go look back on it in a year, 2 years, and say, wow, that was amazing. I made that decision. Look where I am now. Right? But you can't see it necessarily. So no matter what you do, it's going to be perfect for you. Maybe you have to relive that lesson 3 times, working for that crummy boss, 3 different versions of the same person.
Right.
Okay. I remember my daughter telling me this story. She was miserable at this job, and it was some mid-tier public tech company. And she was like getting told, and like, what am I doing? What am I doing there? And she goes to her desk. She had left some presents she was going to mail, and they were gone, like been stolen off her desk. And then this woman she didn't like at all, said to her, when are you going to get your blank together and get the heck out of here? Like really angry at her. Like that was like a message from the universe saying, leave now. She quit the next week. You're right. What am I doing? I'm miserable. Wow. So the universe is trying to help you all along. Just listen. It's all there.
Wow, so powerful. And I'm thinking about anybody at any stage of their career or any stage of their life who's trying to figure out, like, this is not an infinite amount of time. So how do I make sure it matters? And what you're giving us are some really good questions to ask ourselves and some good processes that aren't extreme. They're just breathe. Right. Make lists. I remember when the pandemic struck, and I was a ball of anxiety because I didn't know what was happening. And I remember the first time the president said this could last a couple months. And I thought, I won't make it if it lasts a couple months, not knowing it was going to last a couple of years, and not knowing that I was going to thrive during this difficult time. And I started making gratitude lists, to your point. And I put one on the refrigerator. And every time my husband and I, because we go to the fridge a lot, would, go to the refrigerator, we would just write down something we were grateful for. And this list became huge. And it really kind of anchored us in not what we don't have, but what we do have. And I love that message. You also talk a lot about fearlessness. And one of the things you said when we were chatting is we build these filters, this structure to protect ourselves, to believe in ourselves. And when we let that go, we can be fearless. We talked about ego. We talked about, flow and this state of sort of perpetual openness. How does fear come into this? And how do we find courage to be fearless, do you think?
Yeah. So to know what you're afraid of, to really look deeper, people call it shadow work today, shadow work and going into those places. And the more light you cultivate, you point it into those shadow places, you look at it just by observing and saying it out loud. I don't like this because whatever, you have shined light into something, which begins to elevate the fear into the light, which gets rid of it basically. And it's a process that's called shadow work. It's really quite amazing. And some people are very good at it. And once you develop the tools and techniques, you can see that. So what is motivating the decision? And motivating meaning fear. Okay. Is it love or fear? It has to be one or the other. Okay. No question. And you can parse it down but you get down to it, it's fear. And it could be fear of many things, but it's fear. Or love. Like, I love doing this. I love the way I feel. I love this, whatever it is, love. And love, hopefully from here, not from the idea of love, like if I have this love, then I'm going to be okay. That's fear. You're motivated by survival. Oh my God. I had a buddy who got married because he was afraid he wasn't going to make enough money and his future spouse was making a lot of money. A year later, she quits her job, said, "It's all you, babe." And it's like, oh shit. But he figured it out, and he comes right through and becomes the shining star he is. But it was very funny how his motivation was different. And today they've been happily married 40 whatever years. It was a remarkable story. But there's all sorts of ways to get down to that. But everybody develops their own technique, and there's so many books. I don't want to discuss that. But fearlessness is the lack of fear, right? So once you understand the fear, you can work with love. So it's that simple. Mm-hmm. I need courage to face that fear. No, just look at the fear and say, yeah, okay, I love the love better than the fear. I'm going that way. That's courage.
Yeah.
And the courage to look at oneself, that's the hardest part.
Yeah.
The courage to sit there and literally cry about, oh my God, what did I do? How did it happen? And go through that for a man is really hard. Women, much easier. That's why women are so much more advanced than men. That's why we need more women in leadership roles, because they use their heart more. I'm not saying, but a lot of women had to use their masculine side to get there and become more like the man, which is unfortunate. But once they can use their heart, they're so much better. Their intuition, they're so much better than the men. And you're seeing more male leaders now step into this role. You can see it more and more. I'm 7 years ago when I kind of first had my little awakening on the journey of this, I was like, where are all the executives that know this? And now I'm seeing a lot of guys step up, want to do the work, want to dive in. And you can see it in psychedelic work, whatever technique they're using to get there, doing some journey work there. It's okay. Whatever process, calls you, go do it. But that's what we're here to do, is open up our hearts. And then when you connect with your team that way, when leadership runs from the heart, it's a whole different game. And relationships, male-female relationships or whatever relationship you want, it's okay when it's from the heart. You're going to find a whole different way of relating to people.
Wow, there's a lot to unpack there. It's fabulous, because one of the things that I try to promote is this idea of being unapologetically yourself, right? That I know I spent years of my career and life trying to be somebody else, not faking it, but trying to fit what I thought the model was, right? This is how you dress to be successful in business. This is, what your personal life is supposed to look like. And they worked for me because they got me here. But at the same time, you think about those young people today who are still trying to navigate, like, I don't want to be like my parents, but I don't know what the other thing is. And when somebody says be unapologetically yourself, they don't even know who they are. So this whole concept of self-awareness and understanding your motives and being clear about your intentions is so much what I'm talking about in the book, as you know, but it's really hard to get there.
Yeah, I just thought of something that might help. Okay, and I started a lot of talks I give to like university kids or even at a investment conference, and I said, because I've been in the environmental space a long time now and working on the things that help regenerate. And I asked the question, I said, name one industry that is sustainable today. And they can't, because there is none. Okay. Then the next question is, by definition, what does that mean? You're all dead. just a matter of time, because we're killing this world, we're killing ourselves. Okay. So now, why aren't you scared of that and doing something about that? What are you doing about that? So whatever you do, you're making decisions today. It's like that paradigm that we used the decisions before has failed us. The competitiveness, the aggressiveness, the seeking of money, seeking profit, it's still out there everywhere. You see it everywhere. Nations fighting, destroying the environment. No one's talking about that war damage, how much damage their environmental damage they're creating. We're screwing it up. So ask yourself, do I want to follow the decision paths we've made in the past? No, it's done. So what choice is there but to change your paradigm? You're in a quantum world. You got to use your heart. Let's do that. Prayer, meditation, using our heart, whatever you want to do, change it up, because we have to. We have limited time. If we continue this trajectory, I used to say 2040, okay? 2040, we're done. That's very short. Now I could pull that into 5 years from now, 10 years from now too. It's likely, because what we're doing to water, we're doing this. But all of a sudden I'm seeing this emergence of this new stuff coming in, intersecting, and it'll deviate it and change it. I already see that happening. And I talked to the guys who really do future viewing. They're amazing. They're seeing it too. So we already know it's good, but it all happens because of the heart. It all happens because of the love we have. And, love has no fear, okay? Only love is real. Whatever the words you want to use, it is the truth about us as humans. We're here to relate to each other, to like each other, and don't be in fear. The fear is an old paradigm that has to go away, because it's done. And that's where we're heading to right now, and I can see it. So don't use the old paradigm, use the new paradigm. And in that job, when you have faced a tough decision and don't like what's going on, say, no, thus far, no further. I will not do that work, because that's not in my heart's alignment. I'm not saying being lazy. That's not it. It just doesn't align with my values at this moment. I'm sorry. And if they want to fire you because of that, that's beautiful. That's exactly what you want to happen, right? And then it casts you into the new thing. You can't get the new thing until you let go of the old. That's another thing. Don't be stuck. I'm waiting for that. Let go. And then the universe will provide you something else.
And yeah, it is terrifying, but it's also exactly how those of us who've had those experiences and we can see the better thing that came, it's always that experience. So in the moment, to someone who's not been there, it's absolutely terrifying. But trust the rest of us who've gone through it, who can tell you when you're making choices, because your head, your heart, and your gut and everything about you and what you're supposed to do is aligned, then the good things come. The good things come, and they might look so different. I mean, I think about my path in corporate. I spent 20 years sort of pushing that rock uphill, right? Doing the right things, getting promoted, getting recruited away. I thought that's what it was about until everything stopped. And I went, wait, what's that over there? And what could that look like? I've never been happier. I've never worked harder. I've never made more money, and I've never had more love and wonder and curiosity and joy in my life than I did those 20 years. So it is there. I totally track with you. It's hard to tell someone else, but it is there. And I know that my good friend Param, who is a master storyteller, says he's loving this conversation. So thank you for that, Param. And please get your questions ready as we sort of wind this down.
There's one more example I want to give you, Lita.
Please.
There's an Indiana Jones movie. It's a great one. Harrison Ford is, I think it's Temple of Doom, and he has to cross this chasm, and he's told to put one foot in front of the other, and the stones will appear as he steps in there.
Right.
That is a paradigm out of the Bible. It's a paradigm out of so many circumstances of life. It's trusting that it'll unfold for you as it would, and that is really what you have to do. It is that hard to do. Okay? I'm not saying it's easy. It's hard, but when you go to that state of just love, just know it'll be there. And even if you fall, you're going to fall beautifully, because it's exactly what should have happened. And it's such a nice thing to keep in mind when you're doing these steps.
I love that. The path will appear. It absolutely does. And again, for someone who may be at the early stage of their career, who hears this and thinks, yeah, but that's a lot of risk. Talk to people like us who've been there, who are a little farther along, who can show you example after example of how it does work this way. It doesn't mean being reckless, and it doesn't mean not holding up your end. But if something isn't working, like, stop continuing to look for the cheese in the same place, right? That silly little simple book. Look at something different. Think about something different. Open your heart to a different possibility, and the path, the steps show up. So Roland, with the last question for you, as we wrap up this part and see if anyone has any questions. Sunny says he recently downloaded my book. That's cool. I'm not sure which book, Sunny. I'd love to know which book you downloaded. So that would be fabulous to hear. When you give advice to young people about finding their passion and purpose, everything we've talked about, fear and ego and all these roadblocks, what is one piece of advice you would give to somebody who's at a younger point or an earlier point in their career about getting to the place that you are now?
Well, hopefully they get a much better place than that. Sometimes I had to wait a long time before I got some of this wisdom coming in. Because I have 3 daughters in their 20s going through a lot, and they're friends too. And one just finished an MBA, unbelievably so, amazing. Kids came by. I got to meet them all too. I have this opportunity a lot to talk to people. So, the first thing is I don't want to derail any idea or any thought of what they want to do. But what I always do is like, go do it. There's no mistake. There's no one way to do it. Absolutely not. Whatever someone tells you, this is how I did it, this is how you do it, wrong. Go do it your way. Create it on the fly. You're a master creator on this planet here. You're a being of incredible light. Go make it happen, and don't worry about what people think, feel, say, or do. It's only what's in your heart, and do it fearlessly, because you have nothing to lose at this point. Nothing. And when you're married and have kids, it's a lot harder to do that. You still got to do the same thing, but it gets a lot tougher. But while you're unencumbered, go. I send my daughters and go, and they'll do crazy things, and then they'll come back, because you'll always find a way back into whatever you want to do. If you get a little scared or whatever, that's okay. Yeah. There is no fear there. And they seem to hear that. Some seem to hear it. Some, oh no, I got to get the analyst job at Goldman Sachs and do that. Like, go for it. That's your path right now. And then see what happens and see where that goes. Some of them's like, yeah, I want to take a year off and figure out myself. Awesome. Mm-hmm. Do it. I will not critique it, because I know I have one full brother, real brother, 2 half brothers, and their paths are so uniquely different. And I would have called one of them a complete goof off, screw up, whatever. The most successful guy I know, because he always did what he wanted to do. He didn't care. He just did it. And he just achieved thing after thing after thing in the most circuitous route possible. And he's genius about it. Yeah. And now he's amazing. So everybody has their path, and I just don't want to ever curtail anybody's path. Just open your heart and go.
I love that. Open your heart and go. Well, get those questions ready. Put them in the chat. Sunny said he's reading Control the Narrative. Fabulous. You're really going to like the New Rules of Influence. Pre-order now. My publisher tells me to say that. Before we get to questions, I do want to thank you all for joining. Please follow me on LinkedIn if you want to follow Roland and see the things he's talking about. You can find us on LinkedIn. I'm on Instagram. Roland, are you on Instagram?
Not really. No.
Oh, okay. Well, follow me on Instagram. I'll tell you about what Roland's doing. And subscribe to my newsletter. We're sharing tons of content. And be sure to check out the New Rules of Influence, which is launching in August 27. We're going to be sending out invitations to all of you to join us for a virtual book launch party, where we're going to have prizes and all sorts of giveaways and all sorts of fun things on August 27. But if you have pre-ordered the New Rules of Influence, send Sabrina, it's Sabrina@Lita360.com, an email, and we'll send you a sample chapter to get you started with reading before we get going. And before the book is published. Next month, I have a really special guest joining me. Heather Ely Ray started a nonprofit organization to heal military families. Not only has she been a longtime friend of mine, but her work is so meaningful to the military community that I'm actually on her board of directors. So we're going to be talking about also finding that way of leveraging influence and passion and purpose in the work that she does. what questions do we have? Param says, Roland almost seems like the monk who sold his Ferrari. Amazing wisdom. I don't know, Roland, you still have your Ferrari?
I had one for 3 months actually, and a friend gave it to me. And after 3 months, I said, I don't even want to touch this car. So I didn't sell it. I gave it away.
Ferrari? You're very tall.
Yes, it was an old 1962 amazing car that if I'd kept it for $70,000, it's now worth like $2 million. I was like, what a dumb move that was.
But you did it with love.
Yeah.
So, okay. Oh, Scott has an interesting question. In the 70s and 80s, the path was you go to college, you get a degree, you earn lots of money. Do the insane expensive degrees today, do you see an increase in trade schools as an option for kids?
It's happening right now. It is absolutely happening right now. And I don't agree with college the way it's done right now. You know, I think it's ridiculous. I mean, right now it's $300,000 for the top schools. Wow. Maybe you can get out that cheaply. That doesn't make any sense. It's unsustainable. So the school paradigm is going to change. It's going to be online. It's going to be learn where you can, trade schools, apprenticeship learning. That's where the world's going to go. Short term, we have this dichotomy happening, and it's awful, awful.
Well, what about trade schools, though? I mean,
they're coming up.
They want to work with their hands.
I mean, my plumber, my electrician, these guys I know, they have great lives. They're booked all the time. They make lots of money. They're super happy. I'm like, what the heck, And they fix their problems every day. They're fixing problems. They're really happy. I'm like, yeah, what a life, Yeah. So I always said, if I wasn't doing anything, I'd be a contractor right now because I have skills. I've done that stuff. And it's like, it's kind of cool. So controlling your paradigm. And I think the apprenticeship model is going to come back a lot,
Oh, that's fabulous. Fabulous. What other questions do people have? Any thoughts about what we've discussed? Anything that you'd like some more clarification on? I know Sabrina is adding some information into the chats. If you can bring Param's comment up again, I kind of missed that one, Sabrina. I've seen a direct correlation between companies where the CEO and leaders are showing more heart and empathy and financial growth. Interesting. So the leader of Microsoft. So what you're saying, Param, is that we're seeing more examples where, to Roland's point, right? Because most CEOs are men, they're leaning into that conversation, and that it's actually showing up in the financial statements.
Yeah, absolutely. Especially small. I like smaller companies as better paradigms because you see more correlation of that than the bigger companies. But you're right. These leaders are showing their heart. Yeah. And it's good. It's great.
Well, it helps employee morale. It helps retention, right? Because if employees are connected to the values of the organization, they're going to withstand a lot more, upsizing, downsizing, all of those things, because they understand the mission and the purpose. Yeah. Sabrina, why don't you bring forward your question again? I missed that. For those seeking their purpose and passion, what practical steps or exercises to uncover what excites them and drives them in both life and work? That is a big question.
You said it, Lita. The best one is when you sit down and write what your gratitude, gratitude. Every evening I go to bed, I'm grateful for this, this, this. And if I think I misstepped on something, I kind of make an amend in itself. Yeah. It's actually part of the 12-step program. Have you ever seen those things? It's like, you're making amends all the time in a real-time basis. The sooner you do it, the better. But the gratitude of what I have and what I love will show you where you want to go. Actually, it actually invokes where you want to head. I'm really grateful for that. I really love that. And then all of a sudden you find yourself direction that way. And I've seen this work. There's a whole exercise about that, but that's a good starting point.
Well, and I think also creating space for it. Right. So when I started my business, I had no idea how to start a company. I asked a lot of people, and my business was about a year old, and I'd always created space for some kind of service, right? Because when I was in corporate, I'd always worked on boards of directors. I'd been a leader in my community, and I wanted to make sure that having my own company didn't mean I wouldn't be able to do that. So I just created space for it. I didn't know who I'd serve or how I'd serve or where I'd serve. And then because I had created that space, when I'm sitting there November 9, 2009 at that Denver Broncos football game, and I heard about the work that the military struggles with, it all clicked, right? I didn't force it. I didn't over direct it. I just said, I want to make sure that as a business owner, I can still help people. I don't know who. And of course I have to make money. So I'm going to help my clients, but there has to be an element of service, of give back, of gratitude. And the military conversation just found me. So I think creating space and leading through gratitude is a great way to find that. And that's really hard for young people today, because I think us parents are sometimes putting some undue pressure. And maybe that's where we have an action item to talk more about the things you're talking about and encourage our young people to, what's in your heart? What do you dream about? What would you love to do if there were no restrictions? What would you love to be doing? And kind of leading those conversations instead of, how much does that job pay? Does it have benefits? Do you have to travel? The things that we've been cultured to talk about. Oh, Roland, we could keep talking for hours. I just know that. This has been such a fun conversation. And I can see the chat. People are just loving what we're saying. And I really appreciate you taking time out of your busy schedule to speak with us and join me on Live with Lita. And I know we'll have many more conversations, and I know people are going to want to connect with you. So thank you so much for your time and all your wisdom and all the love you put into this conversation. Thank you.
Thank you, Leah. So appreciate the time and the love that you put into all this work. It's beautiful.
Thank you. And to all of you out there, please stay tuned for next month's Live with Lita and for information about the new rules of influence and the book launch party that we're going to be doing virtually at the end of August. I wish you all health and happiness and a great rest of your day. Bye-bye.